2025. And again, in my greetings, I want to first of all address my colleagues here on the task force. Thank you for your time and energy over the past few years and months, and for taking the time to work on the body of work that we have before us, and that we are still relevant, and we're still on top of things. Also to the staff here, of course, Ms. Sharonica is our team leader, and for the hard work that the staff does to help us understand some of the work that we're doing and the progress that we're making. When I think back on past years, I have to say that and acknowledge that we have made some progress. So I just want to encourage us to not be weary of well-doing, and that our efforts are, the fruits of our labor are coming to fruition. I see it throughout the community. And so just keep on doing what you're doing. Of course, to those who are in attendance in this community, we thank you for your continued support. Good to see you here, Counselor. As always, you're always here. And I see some of my members from Team Do Something here as well. Thank you for being here. First item I have is the adoption of the agenda. If there are no revisions or corrections, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda that's set before us.
So moved.
Mr. Malik has moved. I believe Mr. Campbell was the second. Yeah, all those in favor, just go by raising your hands, or okay, that's unanimous. That carries. We have some minutes from November the 4th. Hopefully you've had a chance to read back through those. And I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 4th, 2024 meeting. Mr. Simmons has moved.
Second.
Ms. Wright has second. All those in favor? That's unanimous as well. Thank you so much. And this gets us down to our staff report. I had an opportunity to meet with Sharonica. I've got to get used to her last name. I'm still calling her Miss Gavin. But she is a newlywed, hopefully still on the honeymoon, even though she's at work. I had an opportunity to meet with her, and of course we discussed quite a few things that we wanted to try to accomplish in the new year, and some of the things that we look back on. And that was in lieu of our December meeting, I believe. So I appreciate your patience and flexibility with using our time wisely for meetings and giving the staff chances to do the work that we asked them to do. With that, we have our staff report, general staff updates, the Alamo districts, Ms. Shay Farrar.
Good afternoon, Shay Farrar for the record. We are excited to announce that we will be sending out the update for our district meetings. Those will begin next week, and we're sending mailed invitations as well as invites out to specific stakeholders and a survey link that we will have live beginning next week with the first meeting. We'll engage the commission as well as the task force with those meetings. So once we have the email approved and buttoned up, we'll get that out to you so you can get those calendared, and we'll work with the commission to coordinate your engagement and involvement in those meetings as well. For the priority amendments, those will be going to the Planning Commission in January for an introduction, with the public hearing being held in February. So those are tracking as I previously updated you. And then as well with the full overhaul, we still have a lot of work going on in the background in preparation for the alignment with districts on that. So more to come. You'll be getting some emails with some updates later today or tomorrow.
Very good. Questions for Shay? I think we are
Well, thank you so much.
anxiously awaiting the
Yes.
work that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Shay.
I was trying to formulate it in my head, how
Yeah.
to put the question to you. So when we do the meetings, they're gonna be done neighborhood by neighborhood? And then after you gather the information, it's all gonna be kind of sort of compiled, or is it gonna be, are the results gonna be specific to the neighborhood?
We will share a report out after each of the meetings. But the true impact will be in the crafting of the actual plans. So what we're doing is taking information out to the community that we've put together thus far, getting feedback on that to make sure that we're in alignment with the community. And then we will develop recommendations that will also be vetted with the community. So this will be wrapped into each district plan, but then those will all be combined into an island-wide master plan after each of the districts has been completed.
But I guess the approach is not a one-size-fit-all.
No,
Am I
sir.
hearing it right? That we're gonna get the feedback and we're gonna try to cater our recommendations based on those informational exchanges?
Yes, the purpose for the district planning project is to gain more of an isolated and neighborhood level, set of recommendations that are influenced more locally, not an island-wide approach.
Fantastic, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shay. Next on our agenda, we have the Historic Neighborhood Permitting and Design Studio Report from Sharonica Gavin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sharonica Gavin for the record. All righty. So I want to give a little bit of a background to our Historic Neighborhood Permitting and Design Studio. So the mission of this program is to assist property owners and residents in our historic neighborhoods with property development permits, family compounds, family subdivisions, conceptual site design, addressing, property access, business licenses, as well as connections to additional resources for heirs property, property taxes, and business development. Now, following our meeting on November the 4th, we have received an additional 4 design studio requests. Now, to date, this program was initiated in October of 2021. And so from October 2021 to December 2024, we have had a total of 95 total design studio requests. 67 of those have been completed, 20 remain active, and 8 have either been withdrawn or either inactive. Just to put that into context, that's 70% of those design studio requests have actually come to completion. And this program, the Historic Neighborhoods Permitting and Design Studio, is relevant to our recommendation, Public Policy 3.
Questions on that particular item?
Right, I'm not sure if this falls under category. We had an issue with the family in one of the neighborhoods. And I guess my question is, the qualification for a project to fall within the guidelines of the design says the family has to own the property since 1956, if I follow correctly. So what happens if a family acquire a new property in the meantime? Does that property qualify under the current standards?
So as of now, if a property owner the property has not been within their family prior to 1956, then as far as I believe we're speaking on family compound, then no, they will not meet those qualifications. This is something that may needs additional addressing as we look through family compound and family subdivisions. I know specifically in this term, in this case, that this has been a family that has been here on Hilton Head for a very long time, as most of our other Gullah families as well.
And I think it's something that we probably need to take a look at because, we constantly have opportunities to present ourselves for us to get properties. And if we are, as a community, can't use that property under the guidelines simply because we have just acquired it, I think we may be missing the mark. And that segment of the goals, because, obviously you have to have a starting point. And if the starting point was having to be since 1956, I think we didn't roll forward to say, well, okay, we may have had an opportunity to acquire some property and add on to a piece that we maybe had since 1956. So is that not relative to under the same plans? So that's my question and a little bit of a concern because if we acquire property and wanted to still use it under those guidelines, then what I'm hearing you say is that we can't.
Right. I think this will, and this is something that we can bring up during our discussions. As you know, the Gullah Geechee Task Force will be a part of those discussions for the LMO overhaul to bring those concerns up and utilizing that as a real-time case that we're currently facing at this time.
So, I'm sorry, let me see if I can understand the question. I think I know what you're saying. So, according to these guidelines with our design studio, it's based on the property itself and not the families or the particular individuals.
In this case, it was in reference to family compound and the qualifications for a family to utilize the, pretty much the benefits of family compound, being that they did not have the property prior to 1956. It was not within their family lineage.
Maybe it doesn't apply to family subdivision as well. I mean, family compound, family
So-
subdivision, all of those particular guidelines, either one.
Yeah.
And for both of those, family compound as well as family subdivisions, those requirements are online for families to kind of review and address, and as well as it can be pulled up in our LMO.
I want to make sure I understand what's going on. If my son purchased property from your family this year, not to set up a compound, he wouldn't even be able to do that because he hadn't owned the property since 1956.
That is my best understanding of it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both families are Gullah,
Right.
but one family just became a new owner. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's a serious,
exactly.
that's a serious, conundrum. We need to address.
It's one of those things that, in the early planning, you focus in one direction until such time something happens.
Right.
And now we find ourselves, like you say, a conundrum about how you do this simply because like I said, it's the same people. It's relatively probably the same land within the neighborhoods. But if I didn't acquire that land prior to 1956 or prior to 1956, or at least by 1956, then I can't use the benefits of a family compound or a family subdivision.
I'll tell you, in our priorities, which is one of the reports that I'm going to give later on today, we do have the family compound, family subdivision for us to continue to look at those. So I'll definitely keep you all posted with that regarding LMO.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was the point or not, so I just wanted to get it in. But,
Oh, perfect.
yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a quick question. So in regards to funding around any of these programs, is there funding that carry on? I mean, this is since 2021 to 2024. Are the fundings carried over from year to year if there's any funding involved in it?
Which program are you referencing, Ms. Wright?
Anything with the design studio, if there's no funding from the town or anything that's in response to this, right?
No, not right
Or
now.
grants?
no grants right now. I will tell you this, we do have a partnership with Low Country Gullah Foundation to assist with a ton of the issues that do arise within the Historic Neighborhoods Permitting and Design Studio. Oftentimes, there are things such as like heirs property taxes, where Low Country Gullah Foundation, a partnership with the town of Hilton Head, as a contracted partner, they do help and assist us with that. Now, that is currently still ongoing as of now.
And one other question, thank you. And one other question that I had, I saw on here that, assisting with, naming of streets has any requests or any applications come in for that, and has any been done?
As of right now, I have not been a part of any of the street naming applications. None have not come through. I will be very transparent with you all. Anytime something comes through for our historic neighborhoods, all staff members here at the town make me aware. When I initially came on, a street naming was already in progress. And there was a list that was developed, I believe, previously by the task force with those just examples of names. That way we could pay homage to those Gullah families who have been here for a long-standing time. So that list is still relevant. And if any additional street naming applications come through, I will definitely be sure to share that with them. If a family doesn't know exactly what they are interested in naming their streets or roads.
Very good, thank you.
A quick comment on the street naming. I know a family, I guess within the last year or two, that had a home alone placement, and they have been on family property for many, many years, and they ended up with some name. I'm thinking, how did you get this name? I mean, and I think the staff must have picked it, and the project had been such a tedious process, I think they weren't even thinking, but somehow I think we need to put a little bit of focus on some of the historical names in our community, because that family, their family go back as far as any family that you could find on Hilton Head. And it could have easily been the name of their grandfather, somebody who I knew long, before the town or whatever. And it ended up being something from God knows where. So how did you get to that? So I think it's, probably a little bit of push for them to, if the process becomes less tedious and they maybe can clear their heads a little better, they'll probably reach back to try to get some of those ancestral names that are definitely, within families. I mean, y'all who live here, y'all who've been here for many years, there's any number of names from grandfathers to grandmothers, even aunts and uncles if you have to go back that far, So it's a point to be well taken.
Well, I too, agree with you with that, but I think now that we do have someone that is here, and is and being able to identify when things like that come up, that we now can make sure that we have that conversation at the table when those names or any naming rights may come up. So, we may not have had that opportunity in the past, but, we do now. So that would be a great task for us to make sure that we are being a part of, so.
I think that's a great point, that we certainly trust Ms. Gavin to
Right.
help us with that process
Correct.
and be the go-between, if you will. And as far as
Mr. Chairman.
understanding how that process works, I think is important as always. Education and communication is what's important. So to your point, Mr. Simmons, that families understand how the process works and when they can be involved and if they have any input.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, not to belabor the point, and the issue once again is if families come back and decide they want to rename, that's another very tedious process. The likelihood of being able to do that,
Yeah.
it could be, could be done, but that process is going to be very tedious to do so. So I think it's going to be well worth it, as we said, to get ahead of that.
Yes, as much as possible to try to get out in front of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will just reiterate again, the town staff, anytime anything comes up within the historic neighborhoods, they try their hardest to ensure that I am made aware. it increases my workload, but they make sure that I am fully aware of what's taking place. So it's good, and it's not just a learning curve for those families, but for me as well. And we go through the process together.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item is our home safety and repair program, also Ms. Gavin.
Alrighty. As of our meeting on November the 4th, we have received additional home safety and repair applications. I will give you the reporting term as I did for Design Studio. This program was initiated in July of 2022. And as of December 2024, we've received 147 applications. Of those 147, 113 of those were actually received as completed applications. You will note here in the report that there are approximately 19 applications that still required additional information. There have been efforts to contact those families to ensure that they know that we're missing pieces from their applications to make them complete, and that I am a direct resource to them if they have any questions. Of the 113 applications received, we have completed 72 projects. Just to put that into context, that's a 36% increase from me meeting with you all on November the 4th. Next, we have 34 permitted jobs under contract, and that's a 26% increase from the last time we met. At this time, there is currently no additional funding in this program to execute it. However, one of my goals as of now is transitioning to identify additional funding to keep these programs sustainable, this program sustainable. And I will share with you all in May of 2024, our home safety repair program was allocated approximately $900,000. In July, we restructured this program to ensure that we could encumber those American Rescue Plan Act funds prior to December 31st. That was about $900,000, and I'm happy to report that we were able to do so with the plan that was implemented. Please note that 90 to 95% of the projects within our home safety repair program lie within our historic neighborhoods. So it has truly been a pleasure going into these homes, assisting them, as well as pretty much bringing a smile to their faces after work has been completed, putting them in a comfortable, livable condition.
Questions?
I wanted to ask, in your search for additional funding, when do you start?
It actually begins, we have a grants administrator. So meeting with her, and this is something that's actually going on my calendar this week, probably today, to sit down with her and identify additional funding for this program. I've also made efforts to reach out to Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust to figure out if they have any funding that we could utilize and tap into.
Okay, and then I guess my question would ultimately boil down to what role does, let's say, the town of Hilton Head play in terms of having a budget line item for this project? Where does that fit in?
As of right now, I'm unaware of a budget line for the home safety repair program.
That's a conversation that we could have with town manager.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, how much?
Trying to understand where the funds come from or where they line up in the towns.
You know, whether they can contribute to the effort to refund. You know, she started with grants outside of the town, and what is, you know, I know the town has a huge budget, but can they find a small percentage of that budget to add to that project, to this project? Simple question.
I guess
Mr. Campbell, you have a question?
Yeah, how much do you think we need?
Ooh, this question came up in another meeting. I think the sky is the limit. Unfortunately, this program continues to, well, not unfortunately, but this program continues to receive applications. So the need is there. And I think that there needs to be some form of funding, whether that's a couple $100,000 annually, to ensure that we are tapping into at least X amount of households annually.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So currently, the program is not funded.
Currently, so as of December 31st, we have utilized all funds that were allocated for the program. The goal now is to identify additional funds for the program.
And all of the previous fundings came from where?
Previous funding, I will tell you from 2024, it came from the American Rescue Plan Act. So those are ARPA funds that are usually in place to kind of help to address economic and public health issues following COVID-19.
And of course, that fund it was actually federal money, so it's now no longer available.
Right.
So the town actually never really funded this project at all.
I don't want to say they haven't, so I'll get that information to you. Just to verify every single source of revenue for the program, both home safety repair and sewer connection. I will get that to you so that I can show you.
Yeah, I think if, you know, the need is within the community, I mean, I think it's incumbent upon the town to, if they have not, you know, to seek to add some funds to a project that's showing its viability. I mean, it's showing that there's a need and a mighty big one at that. So for the town to, you know, just sort of, well, only use federal funds, I mean, which if it's available, then use it. But for the town not to have tried to find a line in the budget to fund, like you said, some money, I think it's something to be looked into.
So, if I understand correctly, what I hear you saying, Mr. Simmons, is that you'd like to see the town take some ownership in this program.
Yeah. I mean, most definitely. I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, it's,
And I think that, I'm not saying that they don't, I'm like Ms. Gavin, I don't want to say that they don't, maybe not through their funds, but they are helping to identify some funds through grants and things like that. But what you're saying is you want to see maybe the town invest in this program as well.
yeah, I mean, I think there's always some dollars somewhere. You know, if I understand any kind of budgeting at all, there's always some dollars somewhere. But and that's if they have not. Like you said, we're not going to say they have not. But obviously, if there's no money at this point, then obviously no one is putting any money in it. So I think no doubt the town has a place somewhere in seeing that this project remains viable.
Absolutely. And what I'll do following this meeting, I will provide each of you with a breakdown of all the funds from the inception of the program, July of 2022 to December, showing where funding came from in order to make the program go forward.
I have a comment. In fairness to the town, I'm sure that identifying the grants, whether or not it was federal funding or not, you know, that they put the effort in seeking funding, but I do understand what you're saying in terms of if there's a surplus in the budget somewhere, then why can't some of that money be allocated to the task force for this particular program? Absolutely. I think that it definitely needs to be identified. I did have two questions too, outside of that. One being, so with the application of 19 need additional information, do they drop off at some point so that we won't continue to see that it's 19 or whether or not it's 15 or whether or not it's 10? Do they drop off and we know that we are, you know, running at a zero to say that there's no applications there?
Yeah, so I'll tell you those that are, that need additional information, just to give a background of what those are typically. It's usually, you know, we need, it can be something as simple as tax paperwork to show property ownership. And so some of them are working towards getting these things completed. Other things could be something as simple as just their income statements, where maybe they provided one pay stub, but we need 3 consecutive pay stubs. So just kind of following up with them. I don't, at this time, we do keep them on that list just to ensure if they do submit the paperwork. A couple weeks ago, I had an individual come in and she provided me with her income. Her application was over a year old. However, she finally made her application completed. So we can add her into that queue. So as of now, no, we do keep them present in there.
So at what point do we consider to be null and void, being that we don't have any funding right now?
I think it will be several follow-ups just to ensure that we have no communication with them.
Okay.
Oftentimes, I have a few people, they call me, even though they don't have the missing pieces just yet, they'll still
Right.
call in and check in with me. So eventually, after several efforts of communication and lack thereof on the other end, then maybe we can transition those off. And then if they do pop up again, provide them with a new application.
So in the event that we do have an angel that dropped with some money out of the sky, will someone be able to, if they've already had assistance, will they be able to come back and ask for additional assistance if they need it?
Absolutely. Yep. Within the program, we do ask that they receive the funding once a year, but they have the full opportunity to reapply. And those who have reapplied in the past, the impact within their homes is drastic, and we can see the changes and the efforts the funding has gone towards.
Thank you.
Now, what about new applications?
So with new applications, we do accept those,
Okay.
and we keep them in a queue.
Okay.
Just to make sure, just as well as I told you all, being as transparent as possible. If someone comes in and they turn in an application, I do share with them, at this time, we don't have funding. However, we're looking to identify additional funding to make the program sustainable.
Now, would you send them to another program that's out there that might have funding that could help them out?
Yes, I have a meeting this afternoon to have a conversation with one of those applicants who is looking to submit a completed application. However, I have identified another community organization who can assist in the same capacity. So I will be doing that, ensuring that some of these are roofs where they're leaking, and I don't want to pretty much progress that damage within their homes. And if there are community organizations that can assist, of course, transferring them over to them.
Okay.
And I should pause here just for a second to ask if anyone in our public has questions about this item or the last item, our design studio and our home repair program.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if there should be an action from us, maybe directed to the town manager, identifying what we were talking about now, but also with a request for consideration that he have it in front of his brain when it's time for the budgeting, to have this as a consideration, as a strong consideration to consider.
Okay, I'm certainly open to entertain that. I wouldn't like to wait for the information from Ms. Gavin on
Okay. And
what has happened in the past, and then we can see how to move forward.
yes, sir. And my only thing is to give Sharonda some leverage. So she's not there by herself, but to
Absolutely.
let them know that we are with this 100%.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure we have the context and the background on it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, going forward. Ms. Sherman? Please come and approach.
I just wanted to say thank you, Ms. Gap, because that program is very helpful, and I've been.
I don't, if you would please
You
come,
can't hear me?
well, just for the,
Allow me?
just come, please come for the record. For the record, so just so we have you on record, because your voice is
Hello,
important.
hi,
Thank
I'm
you,
Sharon
Ms. Sim.
Sherman.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
I just wanted to thank Ms. Gavin Stewart for all the help that she's been doing. That's all I really had wanted to say. Because the process, and when she said people been calling, that was me calling a lot or emailing. So, but she's, being on point about a lot of things. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I just took that opportunity.
So was that for you personally, or was it with some people in the community?
Me personally, and a few people, and once I heard about it, I kind of spread the word.
And that's important. Your voice is important in the community because you hold a position within NAACP and you have people that come to you.
I know, that's
So
why he
that's
didn't
why
want
it's
me to
important
talk
for
in
you.
his ear. I was talking too loud.
I appreciate that.
No problem. Yes, she's been very helpful. So, even trying to get that information, anything I could do to help you. I'm sorry, I should be talking in the mic. I wanted to just tell her that too as well.
Well, thank you for coming to the mic, especially to say thank you. We definitely want to get that on the record.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I
Yes.
just want to make one more
One more?
comment on this
Okay.
before we leave. I know we had spoke about having and Ms. Sherman just came up and gave her testament about it. We talked about having someone who has been in the program to actually come forth or talk about what they have received, and so we can have it on record to show that this program is working, not just with the numbers we see, but hearing their voices and having it on record. So, I mean, if you can encourage others to come in and just kind of give us, maybe that's something that we can identify at one of our meetings, that we can have some of the applications or applicants who've received some assistance, that they can actually come in and, let us know what they received and how much that has benefited their families. I think having those kind of testaments on record helps kind of as, we talked about having some leverage when it's time for us to go to the town and ask for extended funding. Then we have the support of the community coming out and saying, yes, we need it, and thank you, we received it, and this is how much it has benefited our families here on the island. So I think that's very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will definitely keep that top of mind for testimonials regarding home safety repair.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, our next item, of course, is the sewer connection program update as well.
Alrighty, for the lateral sewer connection program, we've received 48 applications. 32 of these have been completed, and we currently have 4 jobs under contract as of now. Now, just like the sewer connection program, we were awarded approximately $70,000 earlier this year. And that funding has all been expended at this time. So the same way we look for funding for home safety repair, we'll be doing the same thing for the lateral sewer connection program. And just to touch on this, I guess once again, with the funds that were provided from the American Rescue Act, that was approximately $900,000. With the amazing team that helps me with home safety repair and sewer connection, we were able to get these projects completed, as well as under contract to encumber roughly $900,000 within 6 months. So I know people are giving thanks to me, but I truly want to give thanks to my town staff, colleagues who helped to make this possible.
Questions on that item? All good work. Anyone in my public have a question about the sewer connection program? Okay. The next item on our agenda is the Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force 16 Priority Recommendations Update.
Alrighty, so for the Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force 16 Priority Recommendations Update, I want to give a little bit, I'm going to read through the background just a little for those online and those here in the room who may not be familiar. A century ago, Hilton Head Island was dominated by the Gullah Geechee people. Because of years of geographic and social isolation, their distinct culture reflects their West African roots in many ways, including language, crafts, foodways, storytelling, traditions, farming, fishing, and relationship to the land. However, following extensive land acquisition by non-Gullah people and the construction of a bridge assessing the island in 1956, a steady trend has occurred that deteriorates the Gullah culture. Because of the alarming decrease in their percentage of population and the corresponding loss of the Gullah Geechee culture, the town established our Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force. Now, the work of the task force is guided by the Gullah Geechee Cultural Preservation Project Report. So the Gullah Geechee Cultural Preservation Project Report focuses on preserving and celebrating the rich heritage of the Gullah Geechee community here on Hilton Head through strategies addressing cultural preservation, public policy, heirs property challenges. So the report outlines 37 recommendations with 16 identified as priorities. for immediate action, aligning with the Town Council's 2023-2025 Strategic Action Plan. Over 60% of those priority recommendations have been successfully addressed, while the remaining are in progress as well as actively being pursued. So in the area of cultural preservation, key actions include leveraging the Heritage Library to support genealogy research and heirs property initiatives. I will tell you all, I have strengthened my relationship with the Heritage Library. I push families over to them and they take amazing care of them, as well as provide me with follow-ups. The Gullah History and Cultural Awareness Program for town officials and staff. This program has been developed with the presentation phase completed. In November, all town staff members were required to sit in this program, and our video component is currently underway. This was a conversation that also took place on November the 4th here with the Gullah Geechee Task Force, determining how to move forward and reinitiating those conversations with community members. Additionally, efforts to involve Gullah associated churches as cultural leaders has been operationalized, fostering collaboration on future initiatives. If there is anything within the community, whether there are community events or basically even a flyer, I am making an effort to reach out to our Gullah churches. Also, in the fall of last year, I conducted church hops at a few of our Gullah churches here on Hilton Head, with another one coming up in the next couple weeks. I will tell you all, I'm also ensuring that there is a consistent cadence of my visits to our Gullah churches, ensuring not only that their leadership know who I am, but their congregation is comfortable with approaching me as well. Alrighty, in terms of public policy, there has been an expedited permit process and flexible land use provisions have been implemented to support development in our historic Gullah neighborhoods. If someone comes through the door, whether it's a permit process, whether it's the placement of a manufactured home, whatever it may be, I am made aware by our town staffers, as well as town staff make an effort to expedite these as much as possible. Our historic neighborhood permitting and design studio, as you guys all know, is flourishing at this time, as well as a delinquent tax fund program has been created through a contracted organization to help prevent that property loss, as well as public outreach initiatives. This is what's being taken place with our partnership and that contract with Low Country Gullah Foundation, ensuring that no land is lost due to delinquent taxes. This past year in October, we did have that report from Ms. Luana Graves Sellers with that update, as well as there are quarterly workshops and clinics that are being hosted by Low Country Gullah in partnership with the town of Hilton Head, ensuring education is there and additional resources are there for our Gullah families. For heirs property issues, significant progress has been made, including the establishment of the heirs property family research project with the Heritage Library. So kind of tying that back to that cultural preservation, ensuring that our families here on Hilton Head know their lineage, as well as that ownership throughout regarding the land. Now, I have included this because I feel like it is important. While the Center for Heirs Property Preservation declined to establish a satellite office locally, this was one of our recommendations, alternative measures are in place to connect property owners with those needed services. So making that contact with the Center for Heirs Property, referring families over to them. Prior to sending families over to the Center for Heirs Property in Charleston, I do start them off with the Heritage Library to ensure that they know exactly their family trees, because it does assist the Center for Heirs Property in Charleston. At this time, I do want to ensure that all of you know that I am still reviewing these recommendations as much as possible and attempting to develop effective strategies to bring them to a place where they're operationalized here at the town of Hilton Head. I don't want to say the word complete because I don't think we're ever completely done with anything, but making sure that they are in the day-to-day operations here. Over the past couple months of me being here, a lot has been taking place. such as stabilizing our operations. So as you all know, my predecessors did take a lot of time and efforts into pushing these recommendations forward. One example is that historic neighborhood permitting and design studio. But it's my job to ensure that they are stabilized and that we review them in order to provide any amendments that need to take place for the benefit of the community members utilizing it, as well as town staff implementing. I'm also building trust amongst our community as much as possible, as well as identifying today's challenges. Our project report was created and published April of 2019. It's my job to review those recommendations and also identify if there are any challenges or if some of these things have actually been operationalized.
So I'm sorry that Mr. Hintz isn't here. One note of observation, and I know that Shawnee's not here as well. I would encourage us from time to time to read back through those recommendations. Many of us were involved in helping to create them, so we do kind of know them very intimately. But my point is to certainly try to make sure it is out so that the public and everybody can see what those recommendations are as well. I mean, in preparation for this meeting today, I went back through that report and looked at all of the recommendations. And I know that we have the 16 top priority recommendations, and you mentioned that you will be looking at all of them, though, right?
Yes.
The reason that I think it's important for us as a task force to keep looking at them is that many of those recommendations have evolved, or as Ms. Gavin said, have been implemented, not completed. But as they have evolved to where we are now, there may need to be some changes as far as how we implement those programs, and some of the organizations that we've identified or the way that we try to do it in the report may need to be adjusted to the times that we're in now. We have hopefully more resources. I look forward to continue working very closely with the CDC, who may be able to help take on some of these, where there's some overlap, and we can kind of point folks to some of the work that the CDC is doing to help us accomplish some of these recommendations. We don't have copy, we can't pull up the recommendations now, can we?
Yes, I should be able to pull them up.
And that's why I should start by saying, I wish Mr. Hintz was here. He always asks if we have a copy of those on hand. But I'm saying to my colleagues that we should have them memorized. It should be, there will be a test. There absolutely will be a test. Just so that we know where we stand with a lot of these recommendations, where they are, again, how they might have changed over time and how we are implementing them now.
Absolutely. So I pulled up the preservation report. And here you can see some of the cultural preservation recommendations from CP1 all the way through to CP18. Starting with the first batch for cultural preservation, we have roughly 8 that are included in research, education, as well as interpretation. We also focus a lot on heritage tourism, as well as preservation planning, and then other issues. When we look at public policies, it's broken down into a few buckets. First one is the development approval process. Second is the land use and development standards. And then we have property taxes as well as other issues. Lastly, the last bucket we have is heirs property. And that's where we have 3 recommendations here. Now, this project report can be found on the town's website at any given time. So anyone within the public can definitely reference it, look at it. They can always give me a call if they have questions regarding it, and we can go through it together.
Thank you, it's very helpful. Thank you. Is that the end of your report?
That's the end of that.
Okay, questions for Ms. Gavin?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question, please. In your, what you call it is your church hopping, church hops, what are the demographics that you're seeing, that you're witnessing in the church?
Say it one more time for me.
The demographics that you're witnessing in the churches?
They're usually our elder Gullah community that's present.
And so my follow-up question would be, that segment of the people below the elders, the 25 to 40s, or the 25 to 35s, are we hitting them? Are we seeing them? Do we know what their expectations might be of us?
I think there may need to be additional efforts to pull in that demographic. I stand within that demographic of those here who grew up on Hilton Head, within that 25 to 40 age range. I think that's where the task force, where we need additional help, or maybe just a push from the task force to this age group. Shay mentioned about updates and community events for the LMO and district planning. This is where we need that age group to kind of come out and share their insight. Let town staff know exactly what they want, what they're expecting, things that they feel aren't feasible or they don't agree with. I think that's where we need their input in those spaces. And maybe having additional pushes, maybe from the task force. I don't know if, each one reach one, to kind of connect with them. I'm making additional efforts myself to kind of reach out to those here within the community, especially those I've grown up with who still remain, to kind of get them more involved. And just as simple as sharing a message via social media or sending a quick text message. As you all know, the Gullah Geechee Community Development Corporation last year hosted a Money Talk series. Now, that had a good diverse demographic group who actually showed up. And it was just as simple, especially with me, just screenshotting it and sending it over. So I think it's gonna take a community effort, those of us who do know that these events are taking place, to kind of share the word as much as possible so that we can reach that demographic.
Yeah, and I believe that one of the things we have to look at is what tools do we have in our toolbox that will attract them? And I don't believe that the younger people are as interested in just telling the story as much as they may be in, something that's more economically based. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
So if there's a way that we can kind of sort of figure out, how we can combine the economic interest along with the cultural preservation interest, then I think we may be able to appeal to that generation.
Absolutely, I agree. And I will say this, I think it's gonna be, it requires a lot of education from our younger generation here. Maybe they're not interested in being those storytellers. However, they have some stake in the future of Hilton Head. So
No doubt, no
ensuring
doubt.
that the educational piece of that is properly expressed to them and that they fully understand and they're fully aware.
Right.
So that way, when there are meetings here in council chambers, when there are community events taking place, that they understand the importance of their voices.
Yes, and how do we tie that to what we know is kind of sort of something that they are wanting? And that is that they want that money. So how do we tie those two together?
Absolutely. So just as simple as those Money Talk series, having us there, having myself as the principal planner for historic neighborhoods, having Mr. Thomas Boxley present, where we can kind of bridge that gap, right? We can sit there and we can provide that education from an economic standpoint, but also share those challenges that are taking place within the community, kind of bringing them together, giving them what they want, but also ensuring that they're hearing what needs to be heard.
Okay.
So if I could jump in a little bit here. There are some resources that I'm aware of that exist. Certainly grateful for Carolyn Grant and our communications department here at the town for all she does to share that kind of information across the board. I do think that generation that we're speaking of is a challenge across many cultures, not just ours. That's what I hear in a lot of organizations, that we're trying to get that next generation. But also, I know that Carolyn Grant in Mount Calvary has a very robust newsletter that goes out and engaging the people that way. As we mentioned, I'm not sure that demographic will see a meeting here at the town and that's what they want to do. You know what I mean? They may not come to get that information. So as you mentioned, we have to find ways to get the information to them, whether it's on social media or through some of the events that we have. We know this time of the year we have quite a few events coming up with the Gullah celebration in February. Certainly some of the efforts that I'm working on now with the Martin Luther King celebration. But anytime we come together at some of those events, those are opportunities to make everybody aware, but certainly we can capture some of that demographic, in my opinion. So that's the answer to part of the answer to the question you asked. What tools do we have? Those are some of the tools that we have, I know. Hopefully that's helpful.
That is helpful.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Sister Margaret has a question.
Ms. Margaret Johnson, yes, please. Please approach.
I'll wait.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Green Johnson. I'm a community resident, and so it's been impressive to hear the work of both the task force and the work that you are overseeing. It's impressive and stunning. And I have a question and a comment. I'm just surprised to hear that two of the significant programs that affect people's very lives and livelihood, their lives, the sewer repair and the upkeep of homes, has run out of funds. So I'm just wondering, how has that happened? It's such an important program. How has it happened that the funding has run out? And second question is, of those contracts that are completed, is there funding for those projects? Or when you say there's zero funding, it's like even those contracts that have been approved, there's no money. And of course, the obvious comment is that that's the kind of thing that causes distrust between the community and the town. When there's this program that's offered, but yet there's no money to fund it. So I guess my two-part question, again, the work is impressive, and I just want to understand how it's happened that there's no funding available at this late date.
Absolutely. So speaking on the funding, immediately when the approximately $900,000 was provided to both programs, well, not to both, but X amount of dollars were provided to home safety repair, and the other funding was provided to the lateral sewer connection program. Immediately when that funding was provided to us, it was on town staff to like, hey, let's try to identify additional funding. And that's what we've been doing from that point. You had a second question, and I'm so sorry, it's slipping my mind.
It is those contracts that
Yes.
are completed, is there funding for those contracts?
Absolutely. So there are approximately 34 projects that are currently under contract at this time. We do have funding for those projects.
Okay.
Yes, we allocated that within our funding. We do not want to ever somewhat mislead a property owner and say, hey, we're coming out, and then we do a site visit and then there's no work that can be done. So yes, we have funding to actually implement, to bring those projects to completion. We do.
Thank you for clarifying that. And the final question is, what can I do as a private citizen to appeal to the town to make sure that at least these projects are a priority? I'm not sure where the town is in its budgeting process. I apologize that I don't know. But what can I do as a citizen to let the town know how important it is that these items be placed in the budget? It's not find a place, it's make a place. What can I do as a citizen?
I would say start by coming to the meetings. Continue to come and voice that during public comment. Mr. Levon, do you have any additional?
Absolutely. Of course, coming to the meeting is always important to hear from people.
Yes.
your council member, whoever represents your particular ward, uh, his or her voice is very important because they're intimately involved in that policy. And I believe the budget discussions take place closer to the summertime, like May and June. So, even now is the time to ask those questions so we can start thinking about that. And yes, certainly your representative from your board needs to understand that. And you personally coming, not necessarily you, but people coming to the meetings to ask those questions.
And absolutely last question, thank you for indulging me. I understand there are meetings on February 5th and 6th, which is the town's planning meeting. February 5th and 6th, meetings of the town to plan for the future.
The workshop you're talking about?
They're all-day meetings at the
The
Western
workshop.
Resort.
Yes.
The workshops.
Town council workshops?
Town council workshops.
Yes.
Okay, town council. Is that a place where voices can be heard to encourage that funding be made available? Don't know.
I'm not sure if they're taking public
Public
comment.
comments.
Then
I don't
they're
believe
doing-
public comment.
Yeah, they have an agenda. Usually they have a,
Public meeting, is it?
I think the public can attend, but I don't know that that's the place for public
Okay.
comment because they usually have an agenda
I
that
see.
they're working on that's already set before them. They
Okay.
usually will bring in a facilitator
Okay,
to work through that workshop. Now, I will say this, that just about any time, I think any of our policymakers will entertain a question, but I'm not sure that's the place where it's on the agenda.
okay.
Okay.
So for those particular specific points, it's best to contact my council person.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. And again, yes.
Thank you so much for your questions, Margaret. We got one for her?
I just want to make a comment in regards to what you were asking about, what's the best place, and of course, meetings, as everyone has kind of echoed about, but I think it's, again, having someone who has had the benefits of these programs, they need to be here and to say what it is for the record. And I think having those minutes as a part of the minutes, then here you have leverage again, and having something written that we can carry on to our council and to, our management for the town, to support, where the efforts that the staff is already working on. So, it always is important to have, and as you know, to have as many people in the audience as we can. So, being here makes a big difference.
Good, thank you, that's great, thank you.
And Mr. Johnson, I would suggest also a letter to the town manager. Because he's intimately involved with that budget to the point where he knows where the money is. So if there's a recommendation he can make based on a request from a concerned citizen, then at least that's in his brain. So, your councilman presence, but also to Mr. Orlando as well.
So good, again, thank you for the work that you're doing, thank you so very much for the time.
Thank you for your questions. Those are good questions and good comments.
Mr. Chairman, I want
Yes, sir.
to back up just a little bit to where we were talking about that 25 to 40 age group. There's an old, and maybe even new saying that education sort of begins at home. The best avenue for these young people is for folks who are in the houses or in the home who may have an understanding of where these young people need to place some of their energies, and then we can support that. But if they have no interest, you're not gonna get them to come to meetings, just as we don't necessarily see that age group in any large numbers in churches. We definitely don't see them in large numbers in any of these kinds of meetings. So, somehow we have to get information to the homes. Because as it's always been said, education begins at home. And if at that point, we can be the support system if they were getting to show more interest, and then we can listen and hear all the things that they may be at that point, when the interest is, if you spark their interest, then you can follow up. But trying to just lure them into some meetings or otherwise, it's not happening now. I don't think you're gonna. It's not impossible, but it's gonna be a very big task to try to lure young people without giving them some inside background to really what's going on and how they are really needed. You know, they need to understand that there's a need for them to participate, not just a want. There's a need for them to have to do that. And I think until such time we can establish them buying into this, we're gonna have a tough time.
I totally agree with you, but I also agree with your early comments, I think, between you and Mr. Malik. If we can certainly let that age group know, that demographic know that there's an economic benefit, because a lot of our young people are going into business now. I will say that there is some hope. Ms. Wright can probably speak to the fact that we do have some younger people now on the Mitchellville board. So there is some youthful energy there. And there's a gentleman to my right who might even be close to that demographic. But as we said, personal testimonies. If those young people can see other young people getting involved and benefiting from it, especially when it comes to the economic part of it. Not just young people, but most people ask, what's in it for me? I mean, why should I come to a meeting? How's that gonna benefit me? How's that gonna change, my standard of living or benefit my ambitions, so to speak? And I'd like to see more of that. Again, that's an age-old problem, challenge, I should say. I don't like to call it problems, because we always want to say that we want to attract our younger people, even if they go off to get education, to come back home. And again, the question remains, why would I want to move back here if there's not opportunities? So those are the kinds of things that we have to do with awareness, education, and as we keep saying, through testimonials. I think that's great. So those are the few things that I would reiterate, Mr. Simmons, about what you're saying. So.
I have one final comment on
Yes,
that too, and I just want you to know that this is not an isolated issue, that it happens everywhere in other organizations, and not having our young adults and even our teenagers and young children to understand the importance of their position as a citizen, to be a part of the town, to be part of the church, to be part of organizations that definitely will have an impact on their lives as they grow. I think one of the challenges that we can look at, that we're not trying to do this alone, because I think all of us have this problem. So where can we collectively come together and just say, let's brainstorm and try to have some kind of, if we can come up with 3 or 4 solutions, whether or not it's social media, whether or not it's, having a social event, whatever it is that we can definitely, during the holidays, I went to a couple of events and I saw a lot of young adults at social events, so I don't know what the key is, but at Mitchellville, we're hurting too. We're hurting for, we have programs for students that we've gone into the Boys and Girls Club at the schools. We've given them the opportunity to be docents or to understand the importance of the culture and the history. And we even give them a stipend. And the children does not participate. So, it's giving them the opportunity, knowing that they need these hours, for school as well. I don't know. So it's not an isolated problem. If we can come together and probably talk about it, we definitely are willing to see beyond the task force where we can, in the community, help and bring it together, and whether or not the CDC has a success record behind the finance programs that you did. If that is it, we all would like to be a part of and supporting that. So just remember, wherever we can, we're definitely willing to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Is that the end of your report, or is there other item for the 2025 priorities? That's all tied into that, right?
Yep, the 2025 priorities. Step directly into this. So for the Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force, our 2025 priorities, focusing on public policies. Of course, we have that historic overlay district, and Ms. Ferrara provided updates earlier regarding that. We also have our historic neighborhoods So just ensuring that the task force will remain a key reviewer of plans and negotiations within our historic neighborhoods. We have our family compound, family subdivisions, which Mr. Simmons brought up earlier, just regulation and refinement regarding both of these. We have workforce housing as well as internal coordination. With the Gullah Geechee Community Development Corporation, determining that overlap and determining which recommendations will fall more successfully within that bucket. Regarding priorities for cultural preservation, we want to complete that Gullah History and Cultural Awareness Program. As we stated, the one item that's missing is that video component. So that is a priority for 2025. And last but not least, refining some of those, our recommendations and our efforts for the Historic Neighborhood Permitting and Design Studio, revamping this program, figuring out what ways we can change it for the betterment of the community members utilizing it, as well as town staff implementing. We have family compound and family subdivision. We also include that heirs property support for property owners, as well as that delinquent tax support program. So that's just an overview of pretty much priorities for the year for 2025, including public policies, cultural preservation, as well as our continued efforts.
Very good. Questions? And as we know, this is always a work in progress, and there's more to come, as we say. I also would like to applaud Sharonica Gavin on the work that she's doing. Just from what she said here today, I don't know how she can get all of that done. And we've had that discussion before too, when we have people who are coming to the front door and asking for assistance, balancing that with actually sitting at the desk or working with her colleagues to actually do the work is challenging. So as much as we can, we need to support her in that effort. And where we can, some of the questions that we're asking, we can probably answer ourselves. Those of us certainly on the task force and in our public can help get that word out and, help her with the load that she's carrying as well. I will say that. Other questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to make a comment and echo what the chairman has said in regards to the work that you have put in and the things that you are doing. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Same.
You second?
Most definitely. Thank you for the work.
Do we need to take a vote?
Same.
It's unanimous.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Okay, for our discussion items, we have, the approval of the proposed 2025 meeting dates. I believe that we have that in our packet. You haven't, maybe take a minute here to look through those dates. And again, I will say this, as we said last year, we have the ability to cancel a meeting date if we feel like staff needs that time to do work. We also have the ability to add special meetings. So I would encourage us to, unless you have some real burning questions about the meeting schedule before us, so hopefully we can go ahead and get this approved today.
I have, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I know there was some discussion that we had prior on last year in regards to not having to have a meeting every month.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we do have a schedule to have a meeting every month here, I think that that we may need to consider giving the opportunity to staff to, if we were to do this every other month, or, giving them time to complete tasks that they're working on, or if there are other things that come up, if we're needing, as you stated, a special meeting that need to be called, then, we have the opportunity to do that if we're needing to vote on a particular item. But I think having a meeting every month is a little aggressive, based upon the things that we have accomplished, and things that are still a work in progress. I think that the way that the staff has been working on that I think not having to have a meeting every month is gonna make a difference with that. So that's my opinion on that. So at this point, I would say I would not approve having a meeting every month.
So let me just address that for you, Ms. Wright.
Okay?
Again, we can have this meeting schedule approved. We still have the ability and the flexibility to cancel meetings as we see fit. I would be opposed to trying to say, hey, just generally speaking, every other month, because it's kind of based on the work that the staff is doing. So, you know what I mean? I don't want to say, well, just every other month. I'd rather have them all there and we have the flexibility to cancel them as we see fit.
Okay, but again,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
majority rules on that one, so, my opinion is to identify the months or every other month, so, but,
Yeah, I just don't know how we pick out which meetings are important and which ones are not, sitting right here in January, because things may change according to the workload. Others?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I definitely think that the agenda, as it is, as you said, we have the flexibility. If there was something we could not do with the agenda to make changes, then it might be an issue, but giving full flexibility, and working with the staff, we have to have a plan or an agenda in place. So it's simply putting this in place, so we do have those options as they may arise. So I would be in favor of keeping the agenda for all of the reasons that's been stated, that we have that flexibility. It's nothing says that we couldn't change or alter, but to not have an agenda or to have just quarterly meetings, you're out.
Yeah.
So I'd be willing to approve the agenda as outlined for those purposes.
Others like to weigh in?
Yeah, I'm
Um,
ready to approve it.
Okay, so we do need to take an action on this item, right? Okay. If there's no other comments or questions, then I would certainly entertain a motion to approve this meeting schedule that we have set before us.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move that we accept
If
this.
you could turn your microphone just for the record.
Pardon, Mr. Chair, I would like to move that we propose this suggested calendar for our meeting schedule for 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Malik.
Second.
Mr. Simmons has second. All those in favor, with show of hands or affirming? Okay, we have one that is abstaining or opposed? Opposed. Okay. Motion carries. We have 4 to 4 to 1 opposed. So well noted. I understand your position. Okay. Public comment. Do we have anyone in our public that might like to address the task force on non-agenda items? We've covered the agenda so far. Okay. Seeing none, again, I want to thank my public, all 4 of you, for being here. It's starting to feel like one of my shows here, Tough times, but again, I appreciate you guys being here and taking the time out and for your questions and for your interest. And I'm sorry, I did not get your name and.
I'm Melinda Tunner, town council member for Ward 6.
I thought you were.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I did not want to overlook you. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us. Okay, if there's no other comments, questions, then we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We find ourselves adjourned. Ladies and gentlemen, please have a good afternoon and thank you for your support in this task force.
For the property.